Joining me now, we have one of the lawmakers who toured the facility, Florida Congresswoman and former DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Congressman, always good to see you. And in fact, we caught some of your immediate reaction after leaving that facility yesterday. You forcefully described that detention center as inhumane. So it's like Republicans went on a different tour. I mean, how do you explain the different views?
You explain the different views because Republicans have clearly fully signed up for the coward caucus and share completely different values than people who were elected, like the Democrats that toured this detention camp. Because when you look at the 32 adult males packed in wall to wall, like sardines in a cage, eight cages in each side of a tent, and say that's like conditions that you have at home, then obviously the cruelty, the inhumanity, and the lawlessness is the point. I mean, these were, if the video you're showing now, imagine 32 men packed into those cages right there, really no room to move. They were all sort of climbing all over the beds. 3 toilets with a 3-foot privacy wall, all in a row with a sink attached to it. They basically have to brush their teeth and get their drinking water in the same unit over the toilet, where they poop and urinate. I mean, the cruelty, the inhumanity, and also this was a pre-planned tour. They would not allow us, as members of Congress are required to be allowed, to tour the facility unannounced. They got wind that we were going to do that, and they pre-planned this tour. And I can tell you that they are not using the same conditions, because I went to Chrome Detention Center and saw a temporary tent that they erected because they have overcrowding there, and those detainees were not in cages. They told me that they were in cages at this facility because they were temporary, and those are the standards they use. That is not true.
So you think the fact that you weren't given access on an unannounced visit was so they could clean it up for this visit that you saw yesterday?
Oh, for sure. And then even then, they wouldn't show us the actual toilets they use. Made some excuse about, like, someone threw poop at a guard, so that's why they weren't going to show us. On an unannounced visit, I was able to see every single thing: the toilets, the medical facility. They would not show us the medical facility. They wouldn't show us the working dining hall because they wouldn't let us get anywhere near the detainees themselves. They are trying to shield what's really going on there. And what they showed us was obviously sanitized. When I went to Chrome on an unannounced visit, it was pretty disgusting. You had, in the intake area, you had detainees that were packed in like sardines. I mean, they set this up in a way to make it look like the least worst situation that you could have, and it's so bad that they couldn't even achieve that.
Federal officials say that this facility is where vicious and deranged people are being sent before being deported. The Miami Herald reports that more than 1/3 of the more than 700 people detained or scheduled to be sent there have no criminal charges in the U.S. and mostly faced immigration violation charges. What does this reveal about the immigration crackdown in your state?
It reveals that they are not being truthful or transparent in what's really going on, and that this is essentially a black site that needs to be shut the hell down. I mean, that's the bottom line here. They told us that everybody in that facility being detained had been convicted and was in final stages of deportation. The Miami Herald story came out clearly today with lists of hundreds who have no criminal record whatsoever. DHS, is lying about that these are supposedly criminals that are terrorists from other countries. I mean, there's no documentation, no evidence of that. They have people banded based on their level of criminality, and clearly most of the people there had nothing more than a traffic stop or no infraction at all. This is run by the state for ICE. We were told that specifically. ICE is deciding who goes. ICE is deciding what the standards are. And members of Congress, by law, are required to be allowed to see this facility unannounced, and we will make sure that we accomplish that goal so we can really see more of what's going on there.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that she's talked with 5 Republican governors, none of whom she identified, about building alligator Alcatraz type facilities in their states. So how can Democrats ensure that those sites, the ones that have yet to come, meet the basic humanitarian standards?
Well, in Florida, they're spending twice per detainee what other facilities have. $450 million in state taxpayer funds are being wasted on this.
Trump is setting up election losses, and we're going to talk about these election defeats and what they mean and how they're happening in a little bit. But I just want to get this across, that it's Trump's cruelty on the one hand and his failing of the base on the other that's gonna hit him like a pincer. Like, that's gonna get him on both sides. Because what Trump sometimes has been able to do is, by just keeping one side happy without looking too extreme, he was able to thread the needle and win. And now, on the one hand, he's literally building a prison with alligators around it, sounding like a sadistic villain from a horror movie, right? On the one hand, but on the other, he's lost a lot of his base with his new approach to the Epstein files. So the people who are conspiracy MAGAs, they love the Alcatraz idea, but they're turned off by the list being hidden. And then the rest of the country, even if they don't super care about the list, although some people do, they're turned off by this new horrific center Trump has created. And the result is going to be increased scandals even in red states. Watch this.
Let's get right to this alligator Alcatraz and the administration saying some of the $170 billion bump up in Trump's mega bill, that's going to go to creating more detention centers like this around the country. We've just heard horrible conditions are unlikely what's in place there. I mean, how do you react to that?
I think there's 2 really important things that the American public should know right now. Number one is the bill that just got passed, this horrific tax cut for billionaires, also funds ICE at a level where it is now the largest law enforcement agency at the federal level, larger than the FBI and all other federal agencies that do law enforcement combined. And so the ability now for Donald Trump to supercharge ICE, create more of these facilities like this one and others around the country is incredibly concerning and dangerous. Then you pair that with these new rules that Kristi Noem has put in place, where she's essentially saying that members of Congress cannot no longer show up unannounced, which, by the way, is the law. And instead, we have to give somehow these 7-day warnings or these, enough time for them to actually prepare for a visit, is absolutely outrageous. It's always been the case that members of Congress can do oversight by just showing up at a facility. I mean, that is our job. And now members are being turned away because we know that these facilities are in horrific condition. We're getting reports all across the country, not just there in Florida, but all across the country, that essentially people inside have no access to any sort of legal advice. In some cases, food and water. The conditions are terrible. And we know also that a lot of folks that are being sent to these places have no criminal record. 60% of the people being detained have never been convicted of anything. And so this now has become essentially Donald Trump's warped vision of his own personal police force and his own personal jails where he can throw whoever he wants in them, including people who don't agree with him. And it's incredibly dangerous.
Representative Nixon, what stood out to you most? What did you see?
What stood out, thanks for having me, Victor. What stood out to me the most was going into the caged facility and witnessing where they housed over 32 grown men together with only 3 toilets, and those toilets were the same places that the folks would get their water from. And it was really appalling and disheartening to see. Not only that, but the director of Florida, the Department of Emergency Management, he was very evasive in his questioning. We often asked who were the vendors and things like that, and they continually said, oh, you have to file a public records request. They were very evasive. At the end of the day, this is a 450 million taxpayer dollar facility internment camp that was just done for a political stunt when Ron DeSantis just previously, a few days before, vetoed appropriations that could have addressed mental health in our communities, that could have addressed the rising cost of home insurance. He decided to do and partake in this political stunt with Donald Trump, and it's just very upsetting.
So was there anything that was off limits that you were not allowed to see?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. There were two tours that happened. I was in the second tour, and apparently the first tour ran a little long, and many of my colleagues stated that some of the detainees were shouting "freedom, freedom" in Spanish. And when we came in for the second tour, we were rushed, and they kept making mention that there were rains about to come. And so we were not able to see the detainees in the place where they sleep. We were able to see detainees in the intake area, and they were saying muy mal, meaning bad in English. And so towards the end of the tour, we were still supposed to have a lot of time. They rushed us out, stating that there was a security issue and they had to put us on they had to put the facility on lockdown. But we know that it was more than likely because they didn't want us to see the flooding that would be taking place if the rains came. They rushed us off, didn't say bye. Just it was very upsetting. And the fact that we are hearing reports from multiple families that go against everything that the directors and the vendors were saying in regards to them not having access to food, not having access to showers. And it just shows that they have a lot to hide, which is why me and 4 other lawmakers decided to file a lawsuit, because Ron DeSantis and his administration continually overreaches. They continually lack transparency.
Talked about this, guys, that you almost never lose an election on election day. Maybe when they're extremely close about being able to get turnout. But elections are lost in the weeks before the election during early voting, getting your people out to vote early. That's a big something that helped Democrats in 2020 and 2022. But critically, you lose elections earlier. 2022, the Republicans lost the House, they lost their red wave, and they lost a seat in the Senate. They lost ground in the Senate. That did not happen in November of 2022. That happened when Dobbs came out. That summer afternoon. That's when they lost that election. The Democrats probably lost the election to Trump, honestly, maybe during Biden's debate, or just with the general effect of inflation, right? They did not lose that on election night. Harris, if anything, almost won it with the debate a few weeks after that, after Biden left. But what we're seeing now is Trump, on the one hand, scaring moderates with his stunt prisons while losing his base on the list and being hidden. He will piss off everyone.